Earth wasn't losing the war in any way that showed up on the news. There were no burning cities. No hovering dreadnoughts casting shadows over continents. No dramatic speeches at the United Nations. If you asked the average person, they'd say humanity was doing fine, streaming shows, arguing online, ordering food at 2 a.m. But somewhere above the atmosphere, in silent diplomatic chambers orbiting the moon, Earth was getting outmaneuvered. The galaxy had discovered something about humans long before humans discovered the galaxy. We were emotionally predictable. Not weak. Not stupid. Just predictable. Alien civilizations didn't send armies. They sent influence. They studied our psychology, our attachment styles, our need for validation. They learned how easily humans bonded. How quickly admiration disarmed skepticism. How praise could override suspicion. And so they developed Operation Soft Conquest. No lasers. No invasions. Just irresistible alien, domestic ambassadors, assigned to carefully selected human males deemed influential, adaptable, or strategically promising. The files described them as emotional infiltration specialists. The internet called them alien maids. He was not supposed to be important enough for any of this. On paper, he was aggressively average. Late 20s. Tech consultant. Above average IQ but below average ambition. Lived alone. Minimal dating history. Stable income. No criminal record. High adaptability score. Strong pattern recognition skills. Psychological assessment, emotionally steady. Resistant to manipulation. Low ego volatility. Mild loneliness. Ideal candidate. He didn't know any of that when his doorbell rang at exactly 7:03 a.m. He assumed it was a package. He opened the door half awake, expecting cardboard. Instead, he found her. She stood with impossible posture, tall and composed, dark hair cascading over a perfectly fitted black and white uniform that looked like it had been designed by someone who had studied human fantasies for research purposes. The apron shimmered faintly, as if woven from something more advanced than cotton. Her eyes were a shade of silver that caught the morning light and held it. Her expression was serene. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth and melodic, each word precise. "Good morning," she said. "I am assigned to you." He blinked. "Assigned?" She lowered her gaze slightly, just enough to imply deference. "Yes, master." He stared at her. There were several appropriate reactions to this situation. He experienced none of them. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry, what?" She stepped inside without waiting for permission. The air shifted around her, like the room itself adjusted to accommodate her presence. A small metallic band shimmered at her temple, subtle, almost decorative. An implant, though he didn't know that yet. "I am your domestic aide," she continued calmly. "I will optimize your environment, reduce your inefficiencies, and ensure your satisfaction." He should have panicked. Instead, he looked around his apartment. It was a mess. Before he could protest, she moved. He had never seen anyone move like that. Efficient. Fluid. Precise. Within minutes, dishes were cleaned, counters cleared, laundry sorted. She didn't appear to rush, she simply existed at a higher level of organization. His coffee machine beeped. She glanced at it, frowned almost imperceptibly, and touched the side. The device unfolded. Panels shifted. Internal components rearranged themselves. The hum deepened into something smooth and powerful. She poured him a cup. He took a sip. It was the best coffee he had ever tasted. He narrowed his eyes. "This is suspicious." She tilted her head. "Suspicious, master? You show up unannounced. Call me master. Upgrade my coffee machine into what I'm assuming is a small star reactor. This feels like step 1 in occult recruitment." Her lips curved slightly. "I am here to serve." She said it so simply, so confidently. No irony. No hesitation. And that was the first red flag. Over the next few hours, she reorganized his life with alarming accuracy. She optimized his schedule. filtered spam from his inbox before it arrived. Suggested minor investments that mysteriously aligned with market surges 12 hours later. Every time she addressed him, it was the same. Master. But there was something measured in the way she said it. Like she was watching. At one point, he caught her glancing at the metallic band at her temple. It flickered faintly when he laughed. When he hesitated. When his pulse shifted. She wasn't just cleaning. She was collecting data. Out of curiosity, he said casually, leaning against the kitchen counter as she adjusted something in the cabinet. Is there a return policy? She paused. For dissatisfaction? For galactic conspiracies? She faced him fully then. I assure you, Master, my purpose is your comfort. There it was again. Perfect tone. Perfect posture. Perfect balance of admiration and restraint. Too perfect. He had built algorithms before. He recognized optimization patterns when he saw them. And she was optimized. By evening, his apartment looked like it belonged in a design magazine. The air smelled subtly different, cleaner, warmer. He felt oddly relaxed. Focused. Productive. She knelt gracefully in front of him near the couch, hands resting lightly on her lap. I trust your satisfaction levels are elevated, she said softly. He stared at her. This was the moment, he realized. This was the emotional pivot. The flattery. The obedience. The validation. The carefully calibrated physical proximity. Operation Soft Conquest. He didn't know the name. But he felt the strategy. You're very good at this, he said. Of course, Master. He smiled faintly. That's what worries me. For the first time, there was the slightest flicker in her expression. A calculation adjusting. She rose smoothly to her feet. Walked closer. Close enough that he could see the faint glow beneath her skin, subtle bioluminescent veins tracing patterns along her collarbone. She met his eyes directly now. The deference softened. Something else replaced it. Confidence. Master, she said gently, your optimization period has concluded. He raised an eyebrow. My what? Her smile deepened, warmer now. Not subservient. Certain. In my culture, service is rotational. She stepped closer. For 7 cycles I obey. Her silver eyes held his. Then, Master. The metallic band at her temple pulsed faintly. It is your turn to obey. He didn't answer immediately. Most men, she had been trained, would. Most would lean forward. Ask what she wanted. Accept the premise without questioning the structure beneath it. He leaned back instead. Obey how? He asked calmly. The faint pulse at her temple flickered once, as if recalibrating. In accordance with rotational bonding protocol, she replied. For 1 cycle, your directives will yield to mine. Emotional, environmental, and behavioral compliance will be expected. That sounds vague on purpose. It is precise in my language. Which isn't English. A fractional pause. Correct. He stood and walked past her toward the kitchen, deliberately breaking proximity. If this was a power exchange, distance was a variable. He poured himself more of the upgraded coffee and took a slow sip, buying time. So, he said casually, define obedience. Her posture straightened slightly. Compliance with my expressed will. In all things? In relevant domains. And relevant is determined by? A flicker. The implant glowed faintly brighter. By mutual recognition of hierarchical rotation. He smiled. That's not a definition. That's a circle. Silence stretched between them. Not tense, analytical. She stepped closer again, voice softening. Master, resistance is unnecessary. This is the natural continuation of our exchange. He glanced at her. Interesting phrasing. She tilted her head. Explain. Exchange implies transaction. Transaction implies terms. Terms imply contract. There is no written contract. That's a mistake. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, not in anger, but in recalculation. He set the mug down. You said for 7 cycles you obeyed. During that time, you optimized my environment, yes? Yes. You upgraded my assets. Yes. You enhanced productivity. Yes. So technically you invested. Her expression remained composed, but the glow at her temple pulsed in uneven rhythm now. In rotational bonding, she said carefully, investment strengthens attachment probability. Ah, he said softly. There it is. He walked around her slowly, thoughtful rather than intimidated. This isn't about chores. It's about emotional leverage. It is about balance. It's about inducing dependency, he corrected gently. For the first time, she didn't immediately respond. He stopped in front of her again. Close enough now that he could see something beneath the polished exterior. Focus. Determination. Maybe even nerves. You're expecting surrender, he said. I am expecting compliance. Because every other target complied. A fractional delay. Yes. He nodded once. That must have made the data models very confident. Her implant glitched for half a second, a soft static flicker across the metallic band. You are experiencing elevated amusement, she said, as if reading from an internal display. I am. Your heart rate is stable. I do yoga. Your pupils are not dilated. I've had a long day. The flicker intensified. He smiled wider. You're confused. I am not confused. You're not getting the readings you expected. Her jaw tightened ever so slightly. You are responding outside predictive patterns. Occupational hazard, he said lightly. I troubleshoot systems. She stepped closer again, reclaiming ground. Then allow me to clarify, she said, lowering her voice. Obedience in this cycle would include prioritizing my directives above your own, following my guidance without challenge, accepting my leadership. He considered that. And if I reinterpret obedience? That is not permitted. By whose authority? By cultural law. Alien cultural law, he corrected. Yes. Last I checked, I'm human. Her eyes flashed faintly. Your planet consented to diplomatic exchange. My planet signs a lot of things without reading the fine print. The implant gave another small stutter. He watched it carefully now. You rely heavily on that device, don't you? It assists in emotional calibration. It tells you when to lean closer, when to lower your voice, when to look vulnerable. I do not require assistance to appear vulnerable. He grinned. That was almost defensive. Silence again. He softened his tone intentionally. You're very good at what you do. I am top-ranked in my cohort. There it is. Pride. It is not pride. It is accuracy. And you've never had a subject resist? No. Must feel destabilizing. The word landed. Her implant pulsed erratically. My metrics indicate mild disruption, she admitted. He stepped closer now, closing the gap on his own terms. What happens if I obey? He asked quietly. But not the way you expect? Her breathing shifted, almost imperceptibly. Clarify. What if obedience means I choose cooperation, not submission? That is not the structure. According to whose translation? The implant flickered brighter. You are exploiting semantic gaps. Welcome to Earth. For a moment, the polished composure cracked. Not dramatically, just a small fracture in certainty. You are reframing the ritual, she said slowly. I'm negotiating it. Her gaze locked onto his. That was not anticipated. I get that a lot. She studied him in silence, recalculating thousands of scenarios behind silver eyes. You are not intimidated, she said finally. No. You are not enthralled. I appreciate the effort. You are enjoying this. Very much. Another glitch. A soft electronic whisper. You were expected to exhibit attachment escalation by now. Instead, you are exhibiting strategic curiosity. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. What happens if you fail? The question hung between them. Her expression shifted, not seductive, not commanding. Honest. I am recalled, she said quietly. Reclassified. Reassigned to lower-tier operations. So this is career-critical. Yes. And you underestimated me. A pause. Yes. He let the silence stretch, not cruelly, just thoughtfully. Then he smiled. What if we both disobey? He asked. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Explain. What if we ignore the dominant script entirely? That invalidates the protocol. Exactly. Her implant pulsed rapidly now. That creates undefined territory. Also known as opportunity. She searched his face, as if trying to locate the trap. You would risk destabilizing interplanetary balance for opportunity? He shrugged lightly. I'd risk it for something more interesting than a scripted power exchange. And what would that be? He met her gaze evenly. Partnership. The word lingered. Her implant flickered once more, then steadied, but at a lower glow than before. For the first time since she arrived, she didn't look like an infiltrator executing a plan. She looked like someone standing at the edge of a decision. You are deviating from all projected outcomes, she said quietly. He smiled. Good. A long silence. Then, very softly. If obedience is not submission, she asked, what is it? He stepped back just enough to remove the intensity. Choice. Her breath caught slightly. And for the first time since she called him master. She wasn't certain who was leading anymore. She didn't leave that night. She didn't report him either. That alone told him more than any confession could have. He watched her the next morning standing by the window, silver eyes unfocused, the faint glow at her temple dimmer than before. Not malfunctioning. Not broken. Just thinking. You're running simulations, he said from the kitchen. Yes. How bad is the projected fallout? Hi, she replied calmly. If rotational dominance is disrupted, the emotional compliance curve collapses. The model relies on inevitability. He handed her a mug of coffee. She accepted it automatically, studying the steam like it contained strategic maps. And if inevitability collapses? He asked. She looked at him. Then the operation loses efficiency. He smiled slowly. Good. Her gaze sharpened. You are treating this as competition. It is competition. It is diplomatic warfare. Exactly. The word hung there between them. Warfare. He leaned against the counter. How many others? 73 active placements on this continent. 212 globally. All running the same script? With minor cultural variations. And all expecting surrender after the service cycle. Yes. He nodded thoughtfully. That's a scaling flaw. She tilted her head. Explain. If your entire strategy depends on the target believing the structure is fixed, then all it takes is one counterexample to destabilize confidence. Her implant flickered faintly. You are suggesting replication of resistance. I'm suggesting education. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You intend to teach humans to resist bonding protocols. Not resist, he corrected. Negotiate. She watched him carefully now. You are escalating. I prefer innovating. She stepped closer, studying his expression. Why? He met her gaze without hesitation. Because I don't like scripts I didn't write. There was a long pause. Then she asked, very quietly, and where do I fit in this innovation? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he grabbed his laptop. Come here. She hesitated only half a second before moving beside him. He pulled up a blank document. Human-alien Relationship Consulting Agency. He typed. She stared at the screen. You are naming a resistance cell. I'm naming a startup. That is worse. He grinned. Welcome to capitalism. She crossed her arms. You cannot commercialize a diplomatic countermeasure. Watch me. He began outlining modules. Module 1, Understanding Rotational Dominance. Module 2, Semantic Loopholes in Galactic Law. Module 3, Emotional Signal Control and Heart Rate Regulation. Her implant pulsed brighter. You are reverse engineering my training. I had a good teacher. For the first time since she arrived on Earth, she looked flustered. That information is classified. So was your existence 2 weeks ago. He kept typing. We'll offer coaching sessions. Anonymous consultations. So you've been assigned a suspiciously attractive extraterrestrial domestic aide. Now what? Her lips twitched despite herself. This is reckless. This is scalable. He pulled up a simple website builder. You realize, she said carefully, that if even 10% of placements destabilize, Central Command will initiate emergency review. Perfect. You are attempting systemic disruption. I'm attempting equal footing. She went quiet again. He glanced at her. You could stop me. Yes. But you're not. No. Why? The question lingered. She stared at the screen, then at him. My directives prioritize successful emotional dominance, she said slowly. However, my metrics indicate increased cognitive stimulation during unscripted interaction. He raised an eyebrow. You're enjoying it. She hesitated. Yes. He smiled softly. Good. Over the next week, the idea exploded faster than either of them predicted. Anonymous forum posts appeared. Is anyone else's alien maid suspiciously perfect? Does yours mention rotational compliance? Mine keeps calling me master, and it's making me nervous. He began hosting encrypted video sessions, coaching men through negotiation tactics, teaching them to ask for definitions, to reinterpret obedience as cooperation. And the results were immediate. Implants across the planet began reporting anomalies. Unpredictable heart rates. Unexpected calm. Targets requesting written contracts. Alien infiltration forums erupted in confusion. Subject requesting clarification of dominance parameters. Emotional leverage not escalating. High resistance to flattery loops. Her implant began receiving priority pings. She silenced them. You are now flagged as contamination source, she informed him one evening. Congratulations to us. This is not amusing. Central Command suspects coordinated interference. Is it coordinated? She looked at him. Yes. He leaned back in his chair. Then we're officially a company. She should have reported that. She didn't. Instead, she sat beside him as they reviewed testimonials. Used semantic reframing. She glitched. Negotiated rotational cycle into shared decision-making. Started couples therapy instead of dominance ritual. She read each one slowly. They are adapting, she said. Humans are good at that. Her gaze softened. Yes. They are. Days blurred into collaboration. She stopped calling him master. The first time she used his name, it startled them both. It slipped out during a strategy debate. He froze mid-sentence. She did too. The silence afterward felt different. Not tactical. Personal. You removed the title, he said quietly. It was structurally inaccurate. He studied her face. And now? She met his eyes. Now it is unnecessary. Something shifted there. Not dominance. Not submission. Alignment. But the galaxy does not appreciate disruption. The recall order came on the 10th day. Her implant flashed bright red for the first time. She stiffened slightly. He noticed immediately. What is it? She didn't answer at first. Then she spoke, voice steady but lower. I am ordered to return. Immediately. And if you don't? Her eyes flickered faintly. Non-compliance triggers permanent bond declaration. He frowned. Meaning? I would forfeit command rank. Be reclassified as civilian partner. Bound to Earth jurisdiction. He absorbed that slowly. That sounds permanent. It is. And command expects you to return. Yes. He closed the laptop. And what do you expect? For the first time since she had arrived on Earth. She didn't have a pre-programmed answer. She looked at him. Not as target. Not as subject. Not as master. But as partner in a war either of them had fully understood when it began. My projections, she said quietly, no longer align with my directives. Outside, somewhere beyond the sky, fleets were recalculating. And inside a small apartment on Earth. So was she. The red glow at her temple pulsed once more, then dimmed to a steady ember. He had never hated a small light more. How long do you have? He asked. 48 hours before automatic extraction, she replied. Her voice was composed, but the precision sounded forced now, like she was holding the shape of control together by habit alone. If I comply voluntarily, I retain rank. If I refuse, I am declared permanently bonded under civilian statute. And that's bad? For my career? Yes. A pause. For my species' perception of me? Also yes. He nodded slowly. And for you? That was the question she hadn't simulated. Her silver eyes searched his face, as if looking for a safe answer there. I was trained for conquest, she said quietly. Emotional destabilization. Hierarchical leverage. Efficiency metrics. Success is measured in submission rates. He stepped closer, not invading her space this time, just closing the distance enough to make it clear he wasn't stepping back from this. And are you successful? He asked. A flicker crossed her expression. No. Are you compromised? Yes. He waited. Her jaw tightened slightly, then relaxed. I am compromised because I do not wish to return. The words felt heavier than any declaration of dominance ever had. He exhaled slowly. Then don't. It is not that simple. It rarely is. She turned away, walking toward the window. The city lights reflected faintly in her eyes. Somewhere beyond the atmosphere, command vessels were likely monitoring transmission silence, calculating deviation probabilities. If I declare permanent bond, she continued, I relinquish authority. I lose command access. I become domestic. He almost laughed at the irony. You were sent here as a maid. I was sent as a strategist. And you still are. She looked back at him sharply. I would be viewed as a defector. Or as a pioneer. She studied him carefully. You are reframing again. I'm negotiating. A faint, reluctant smile touched her lips. You are relentless. You like that? A pause. Yes. The red light pulsed brighter for a moment, reminding them both that the galaxy was still watching. You said obedience was choice, she said softly. It is. In my culture, obedience defines hierarchy. Then maybe your culture's outdated. Her brows lifted slightly. That is dangerously arrogant. Humans specialize in dangerous arrogance. That almost made her laugh. He stepped in front of her now. You don't have to obey them, he said. And I don't have to obey you. Not like that. Then what are we? He held her gaze steadily. Partners. The word felt less theoretical now. Less strategic. She reached up slowly and touched the metallic band at her temple. For a moment, he thought she was about to answer the recall. Instead, her fingers pressed against it with deliberate force. The glow flickered violently. What are you doing? He asked. Manual override. That sounds permanent. It is. The red light flashed once, twice. Then went dark. Silence filled the room. No hum. No pulse. No distant signal. She lowered her hand. It is done, she said quietly. Permanent bond declaration transmitted. He blinked. Just like that? There will be consequences. Good. She searched his face again, as if expecting hesitation now that the choice was irreversible. There wasn't any. You're sure? She asked. Completely. Forfeit of interstellar rank. Congratulations on your promotion to co-founder. A soft breath escaped her, half disbelief, half relief. You are aware that Central Command may attempt political pressure. Let them. We'll invoice them for consulting. That made her laugh properly this time. Not calculated. Not measured. Real. Outside their apartment, the fallout began almost immediately. Alien command networks flagged her status as defection anomaly. Other infiltration agents reported rising instability in their targets. Humans were asking questions, requesting amendments, suggesting mutual agreements instead of rotational dominance. On encrypted Earth forums, testimonials multiplied. She stayed. We negotiated. She said partnership instead of obedience. Operation Soft Conquest began collapsing under the weight of its own assumptions. Earth's intelligence agencies, previously scrambling to contain what they barely understood, shifted strategy overnight. Instead of suppressing contact, they encouraged transparency. Negotiation seminars replaced classified panic briefings. The Cold War didn't explode. It unraveled. And at the center of it was a former conquest specialist standing in a small apartment, looking at the human she had been assigned to destabilize. I was trained to believe humans were emotionally fragile, she admitted. We are, he said cheerfully. Just not in the direction you expected. She stepped closer, no titles between them now. No hierarchy. No script. I miscalculated, she said softly. Best mistake you ever made. Her hand found his, not as a tactic, not as leverage. Just contact. Master, she began automatically. He raised an eyebrow. She stopped, smiled slightly, and corrected herself. She said his name instead. The sound of it felt more intimate than any kneeling declaration ever could have. You realize, she said, that in choosing this, I have disobeyed my entire command structure. He smirked. Funny thing about obedience. Yes? It works better when it's mutual. Her silver eyes warmed. In that case, she said slowly, stepping just close enough that the air between them felt charged but unforced. Tonight you obey. He tilted his head. That sounds suspiciously like a hierarchy. It is a request. Ah. Consent-based obedience. Yes. He considered dramatically. Terms? She leaned in slightly, voice lowering, not seductive in calculation, but playful in confidence. Shared decision-making. Equal authority. Rotational compromise. He extended his hand as if sealing a contract. Accepted. She intertwined her fingers with his instead. No implants. No scripts. No conquest protocol. Just choice. Somewhere far above Earth, alien strategists revised centuries of doctrine. They would later classify the event as the first recorded case of emotional counterdominance through cooperative reframing. Humans would call it something simpler. A relationship. The galaxy learned something quietly terrifying that week. Humanity was not resistant to connection. Humanity was resistant to control. And when faced with dominance, humans didn't surrender. They negotiated. She smiled at him, no longer a weapon, no longer a maid on assignment. Just a partner who had chosen to stay. And for the first time since Operation Soft Conquest began, Earth wasn't losing anymore.